Hey everyone, I'm going to be taking a break from the usual programming to talk instead for a moment about disaster relief for Hurricane Helene, as well as what's probably going to be coming in the wake of Hurricane Milton, which has skyrocketed from a Category 1 to a Category 5 hurricane and is going to be making landfall in the Tampa Bay area on Thursday, October 10th. The two things I'm going to talk about here for a minute are mutual aid and disinformation. The former, which I've talked about at greater length on this podcast before, you can find a link in the show notes, is a way that we can help each other and cover the shortfalls that may exist within any official response or disaster relief efforts. Disinformation, by contrast, is really running rampant in the wake of Hurricane Helene and is likely to also be a significant problem when Hurricane Milton makes landfall. To first talk for a minute about mutual aid. As a brief recap, mutual aid is a form of social assistance that's based on people helping each other based on their capacity and ability to do so. In short, from each according to their ability and means to each according to their need. As much as disaster preparedness, evacuation, and other steps are vital for making it through the initial impact of a natural disaster, mutual aid is part of what helps communities recover. Now, there's a lot of imagery and ideas that I know float around in popular culture of the prepper or the survivalist who has cans of beans stockpiled in their basement and cases of ammunition. But the thing that really gets people through these kind of difficult situations is communities helping each other out. This is something that Rebecca Solnit has talked about at length in Paradise and Hell, and it's something I've also seen in the wake of wildfires that pretty consistently is what really gets people through. The podcast It Could Happen Here has, as of Tuesday, October 8th, released an excellent breakdown on what has been working for people in Western North Carolina, and I've included some of the resources that they've recommended in the show notes. What makes mutual aid different from conventional charities is the resources that are given to these different mutual aid groups and projects have, at least so far, been being very directly used to help people. You may also see similar requests like GoFundMes and other sites being used to raise funds for people that are in affected areas. Even if you can't donate, I very strongly encourage that you at least share and boost that information so that at least those fundraisers have a better chance of hitting their goals and meeting the needs that people have. Now, when I'm stressing mutual aid, I'm not saying to avoid or dismiss official channels. I've also included a link to a number of hurricane-related resources that have been put together by the Appalachian Regional Commission. Rather, what I'm saying is that even when, for example, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, better known as FEMA, has the funding, resources, and support they need, there still is a significant lag between the impact of a disaster and the time in which aid workers and resources are able to reach the most affected areas. And this is especially true. This is especially true in Western North Carolina and may, although I hope this is not the case, prove to be true in Florida due to the level of destruction of critical roads and infrastructure that has been reported in the region, which limits the ability of people, goods, and resources to flow. Mutual aid projects can also improve the effectiveness of federal and other disaster relief efforts from more official institutions by providing additional resources and means for communities to recover and take care of their needs. One last thing I do want to caution people on, especially because this relates to the next point, is to verify whatever sources that you're seeing and make sure that they are in fact genuine. Because again, there is also quite a bit of disinformation and misinformation that has been running wild on the internet since Hurricane Helene struck. The reasons why this misinformation is spreading so easily is something that I could go on at much greater length about and may do so another time. The short version is we can thank folks like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg for prioritizing engagement, which often works best when people are pissed off, on their apps over ensuring the accuracy of the information that is actually running around, with Musk definitely being more guilty of that than Zuckerberg. The point is, we live in an information environment these days where the information that most readily spreads is the information that causes outrage. And this has led to a lot of bad information getting out that, based on reporting as well as what I've heard from some folks that are in the area, is not really helping the situation. I'm sure folks have seen a lot of the more ridiculous stuff about weather control devices and what have you that have come from the usual crowd of conspiracy theorists, which, while not helpful, is not really the thing I'm so worried about. You see, the real problem is not fantastical explanations for why these disasters are happening, but more garden variety disinformation that has been coming from everyone like Donald Trump all the way down, such as claims that FEMA relief efforts are being withheld, or that there's been false reports of towns that have been militarily secured so that they can cover up how many people died and the extent of devastation, and all kinds of other stuff that really has that sort of friend of a friend, someone I know said they saw something kind of feel to it. One particular example that has been getting a lot of legs are claims that the village of Chimney Rock was supposedly being fenced off and secured by federal authorities. Bodies were being stacked up and hauled away, and bulldozers were being brought in to flatten the town, take away people's property, and prepare to sell it at auction. County authorities have dismissed these claims, asserting that none of the above has happened, and given the current circumstances facing Chimney Rock, it wouldn't even be possible to get bulldozers up there in the first place. But regardless, this story has been spread like wildfire, along with many others. What this does is it makes people much less likely to trust or work with disaster relief, just when people really need to be coming together and exercising social trust the most. It's also further not helped when folks like Donald Trump, as well as anyone who's swallowing his line, repeat claims that Joe Biden and the feds are actively abandoning the region, or potentially what may be befalling Florida as well. Now, far be it from me to be in the position of defending the U.S. government, but based on available credible reporting, the problem isn't so much one of communities being left out to dry as it is that this is an unprecedented disaster. This kind of vague, non-specific sort of disinformation and generic claims about what is and is not happening with disaster relief give a lot more room for more specific cases like the claims regarding Chimney Rock to get legs and spread. What you can do to help combat the spread of disinformation is to check the information that you are seeing, which is coming out from the affected regions. And when I say check, I mean verify if the source is credible. A random Facebook post that somebody put up in a group or some Twitter post that just has an image without any particular attribution or other citations is probably not a credible source. If it's something like, say, a local news station, a genuine newspaper that's actually in the region, something coming out from official outlets, or something that is coming from, again, those earlier mutual aid groups that I mentioned, then there's a bit more credibility to it. What you can also do is run whatever it is that you're seeing in front of you through sort of an internal smell test. Like, say, to turn back to the Chimney Rock case, when you stop and think about it for longer than the time it took for somebody to, say, record a TikTok and make wild claims about land seizures, you could also stop and ask yourself, do the facts of the situation actually line up? Such as, for example, how is it that the kind of construction equipment that would be necessary to do something like that get into an area which, by all reports, is currently operating on devastated roads that most certainly can't handle big earth-moving gear, and supplies are often being brought in by helicopter and airdrop. Similarly, to then go to the next step, which is the claim about seizing the town in the first place for some kind of real estate scam or whatever, if the motivation is something that sounds like it could be summed up as because they're evil, or why not, they're malicious actors, and not by, well, there's a clear, direct, discernible reason why somebody would do that thing and a clear benefit that they would receive from that course of action, that's sort of the difference between a reasonable versus an unreasonable supposition. It's like how I've often observed that a major problem that you see in conspiracy theories is they don't really have these kind of clear, discrete motivations. To turn to one of the best modern examples of a conspiracy in recent history, we can look at Watergate, where there was a clear, discernible reason why Richard Nixon authorized all kinds of assorted skullduggery in an attempt to win an election. Donald Trump tried a lot of the same things, but a lot more out in the open in 2020, and looks like he's warming up to do the same again in 2024. All those cases are ones where there's a clear, direct, and discernible benefit from that course of action. But sending up earth-moving equipment and troops and federal agents to cover up the destruction of a remote Appalachian village 'cause real estate scam, yeah, there's like a lot of steps you have to jump through, and they don't really make sense on their own, and even less when you put them together in a chain. So if you're seeing something that really doesn't pass the smell test in that way, that if you stop and think about it and go, well, who's actually going to benefit from doing this, then you might also have something that's a clear-cut case of disinformation or other misinformation. The best way to combat these kind of rumors and disinformation is to confront the disinformation when and where you see it, usually by asking questions like, well, what's the source? Were they a direct witness or from some other credible news-oriented or information-gathering organization? Is the explanation one that passes the smell test? And is this information that's actually helpful to the people that are in the area or people that are outside the area looking for something to do so that they can help people in need? If the answers to those things are no, then that's something that needs to be called out. It's something that maybe you should not be sharing it. And to help counteract this tide of misinformation, I recommend on the flip side that you share credible links to mutual aid and local disaster relief efforts, requests for resources coming from people in the area, and any other similar sources. If you are living closer to the affected areas and you're able to help out, then by all means, please do so to whatever extent is safe and within your ability to do so. So please share good information, debunk the bad, help out however you can, and for the folks who are living in the southeastern United States, may the powers keep you and yours safe, and may we all find ways to come together to help those who are in the greatest need in these trying times. Thank you all for listening, and additional information can be found in the show notes.